I do not happen to believe that the way that media has been transformed into an interrogation weapon by Paul McCartney, such that he can use a kind of neurohypnotic equipment system where he has given language definition with the help of Musk to every number 1 to 23, 20, 30, 1 to 31, 45, and beyond, and use these as weapons. It's found art. I don't believe it's found art any more than TVC15 is limited to meaning a vibrator. I think it should be noted that um, the rabid animals in real worlds who came after me with so much ferocious hatred, who hotwired up this idea that they could extract from me blame for a claim that the world makes about John Lennon, while advocating for the people who wrote the script they attribute to me. A lewd and sneaky backstab. The whole time they were setting this up, they were stalking me, casing me from time predating the stepping out of Lennon and Salvini. The girl who introduced me to Gail Burstyn called me up and said, "I think I'm pregnant." And it sounded just like Revolution #9, Yoko Ono's voice, because she was in on it. The person who knew about that conversation was James Child, who lived in Julie Sellers' house, Julie Sellers' house, a friend of Elaine Langer and Gail Burstyn, a hireling. He was a donor to Dole and Trump, author of Pacifism is Immoral and The Nuclear War, the Moral Dimension. He knew about that Revolution #9 tape because he made a big stink about the word preference. Because I said I prefer, but if you want to have the child, I will help you raise it. So we know the layout of the demonology kit that was put together by Bell Labs, and the phone system. East Liberty phone book had a Dr. Frankenstein in it, up by Wattenmaker. Wattenmaker used to make phony phone calls. When I was about 15 years old, after we moved, my mother was in tears beyond tears. We were driven to sell our house and move by this murderous gang that they keep saying I was friends with. Um, I got a phone call. They said the kid came over to me with scissors to cut my hair off after all of this humiliation, torture, being kidnapped, mutilated, subject to horrible vampiric pedophile ordeals in Butler as a child. He came over with me with scissors, and I gave him a fat lip. And they said, well, he's like a Palestinian. He's violated the truth. Well, for one thing, I'd be very honored to be a Palestinian, but it's not an honor that I have any claim to. The honors that Miles Kirshner thought were too good were associated with my father. I was an honor student. I still am an honor student. They played pranks on me to whip up a whisper campaign to pursue me after we moved to try to get away from them. But the honors were my father's. He was chair of philosophy of education. He was a generous man, school bus driver. He raised a Jewish son who he loved very dearly. He was a lieutenant in the Navy in World War II, a Peace Corps leader, characterized as a hero by the regional director of Amnesty International, who had classes with him. He authored America's Stake in Human Rights, Foundations of Modern Education, Humanizing the School. He was a villain to Angela Davis, evidently, but he refused the presidency of the University of Georgia when they refused to desegregate. There were times when he was at Teachers College with Dwight Eisenhower in Columbia. So these honors, I'm not allowed to defend my mother from a man with scissors by giving him a fat lip because I'm a Palestinian. It's the way that Pittsburgh frames this. It's important to understand. It's the way Peter Gabriel, Donald Trump framed this issue. It's important to understand that. These people had deafened me, they tortured me, they raped my deaf advocate, they refused to teach me sign language, they ran a pimp campaign to make illicit blackmail claims, they murdered bystanders to terrorize me, they poisoned me in the mouth. And they frame it that I'm a Palestinian because I defended my devastated mother from a man with scissors by giving him a fat lip. And they call me a Palestinian for doing that. The one courteous thing that they have to say about me. I would get these calls from Karen Levitt. She'd say, "We know who you are and we saw what you did," and hang up. "We know who you are and we saw what you did," and hang up. And sometimes I would pick up the phone. In those days, I could hear a little. I had one hearing aid. I would talk on the phone. My hearing has gradually gotten progressively worse. No doubt Parkinson's is doing its damage, intended damage. Sound mental health intended to torture me with Parkinson's, to erase the tape of the horrible crime that was committed, the way they erased the legacy of the people of Gaza. They vanished all of my correspondence. 7 boxes of hope were vanished. They just eradicated everything, disinherited me. But I could hear a little. I could talk on the phone. I'd pick up the phone sometimes and there'd be this background of all these people talking, you know. And I asked a couple of times, you know, it happened a couple of times. And I asked some people if it ever happened to them. They say, "Oh, that's when wires get crossed. It's called a party line." Well, these are party line people in the Zionist movement in Pittsburgh. They have a party line going. "We know who you are and we saw what you did." They know perfectly well that I was kidnapped and tortured. That Leslie Katz and Gail Burson and John Schulman were behind the script of Brian Eno and Yoko Ono. And yet they have a party line going. And they work, and this party line establishes a narrative where I'm a reckless driver at Kelly Elementary, not a furious passenger, quit the job over it, and so on. I mean, that you could itemize their lives. But the totalitarian wizard room, the spinner beanie behind it, is Brian Eno working with George Bush. And you're telling me if there's any two people on earth that could have pulled together Lenin Sudini, it's definitely these hot dogs from the CIA and MK Ultra and MI6, MI7. None of us know what John Lennon's life in the Bush of Ghosts was after he Houdini. But we know who Bush was.